Alrighty, so as we probably are all well aware that inflation is hitting all of us at some degree or another, and in all areas of our budget, really, but especially in the grocery area. And today we are going to be talking about 10 ways or 10 tips to strategically make the most of your grocery funds, or the funds that you do have available, so you're able to feel a little bit more in control when you do go to the grocery store and you're not like, wow, I can't believe I just spent that much money at the grocery store and I don't know where it all went. And so, like I mentioned, we'll be going over 10 different tips for that today. And so, just a little bit of statistic background before we really jump into it. As of July of 2021, that's the most recent data we could find. Grocery prices are up on average by 13% as of July of this year, they are up by 13% from July of 2021. So from 1 year ago, they've rose an average of 13%, with the meats, poultry, and eggs being hit the hardest, as well as the fresh fruits and vegetables. As we've probably all seen, it's making eating healthier a little bit harder to do while maintaining your budget as well. And so this just makes it all the more important, or more important now than ever before, to clean up your grocery budget, make the most of the funds that you do have, and be the most intentional with your choices that you can be. And so we will be talking about some tips, including checking your pantry and freezer first, doing an inventory of those before heading out to the store. We'll talk about what's called the pantry challenge that we love talking about around here. And that can also be a way of preventing panic buying and the stress that some people may feel as they go to the grocery store, because the prices are a little bit out of our control. And so let's go ahead and jump into our 10 tips that we have to share with you to inflation proof your grocery budget and take back a little bit more control there. And like I mentioned, Emily will be in the chat. And then also we'd love to hear from you guys, any experiences that you have with any of these tips, or also any other tips that you guys are finding to be helpful when you go to the grocery store as well. So our first one is planning out your meals. So that can really help you in taking back control right there. So start out by making a list of what you will make for the week. And this can help you reduce food waste, which is essentially wasting money if you're throwing away food that you weren't able to use. And then also it's able to help you limit the amount of trips that you make to the grocery store. And really, the more trips you make to the grocery store, the more opportunities there are for you to make impulse purchases or unplanned purchases, which generally aren't the smartest purchases that we end up making. And sometimes we're a little regretful of them, or it's just not the most intentional or best use of our funds that we do have. And also, just another tip, it can be helpful for you to build your meal plan based on what you already have in your refrigerator, your pantry, and your freezer, which we will be talking more about later on, like I mentioned. So get your thinking caps on, pretend you're on one of those cooking shows like Chopped. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen that, but pretend you're on one of those shows and you have to get creative with the items that you do have so that you're minimizing what you need to go to the grocery store for. And then just a couple of other tips to help make your meal planning successful. So eat and freeze your leftovers. And really, there are some nights, if we're being honest, there's some nights that you just don't feel like cooking dinner or you don't have time for it, especially after you get home from work. You're just like, I really don't feel like cooking. I'm so tired, or I don't have time to because I have this, and this going on after work as well. And so, as you plan out your meals, consider having there be a couple of nights that you make a little bit extra, or you freeze a couple of portions of your meals so that you're able to just pull them out of the freezer, pop them in the oven or the microwave, and have a meal right there rather than getting takeout or going out to eat, which is generally going to be a little bit more expensive as well. And then as you are planning your meals around your leftovers, it's going to also be reducing your food and money waste as well right there. And also consider planning meals that have common ingredients. So having at least a couple of meals with the same starches or proteins in a row so that you are able to mix things up and you're not getting tired of having the same thing for 2 or 3 nights in a row. And you're also able to cut back on the amount of prep time as well, because you only have to prepare that meat or starch one time. Take advantage of the sales. So case lot sales can be beneficial for stocking up on things that you use often. Look for the sales in your weekly ads. If I could get a raise of hands of anybody that's ever thrown the grocery ads away as soon as you get them, raise your hand or put a yes in the chat. I think that we're probably, so I see a couple. I think we're all probably guilty of doing that at some point or another in our lives. So I'm seeing some yeses come in as well. But really, those can be a great money saving tool as well, which we're going to talk a little bit more about now. And so a couple of ways to make them money saving tools is to watch the sales cycles and try to stock up on things enough when they are on sale to last you until the next time that they will go on sale. Especially with meats, if you're able to freeze them and then you aren't paying the full price, we'll say, for the meats. That's something that we've seen. There's a couple of particular meats that we enjoy using and we use a lot of in our house. And so we've watched the sales cycles. We've seen that about once a month, they will go on sale for about half the price of the normal price. And so we'll stock up and get a few of it, put one in the fridge to use that week, and then some in the freezer to last us until the next time it goes on sale. So that can just take a couple of minutes each week to just kind of familiarize yourselves with the sales cycles. Also, put a yes in the chat if you've ever went to the grocery store and you spent like $75 or $100 at the grocery store, and then you come home and you're like, what can I make with this that I just came home with? I know I've done that because I wasn't as intentional with planning out my meals and having a plan in place for my shopping to make it most intentional. Being able to use the grocery ads, so take 5 or 10 minutes each week and get together with the other people in your household, or if it's just you that takes the lead on planning out your meals, then take a few minutes and plan out a few meals that are based mainly on the things that are in the grocery ads so that you're able to utilize the things that are on sale at that time. And then a couple of other benefits that can come from doing this is you have a good idea about how much things are going to cost. You can also check the app for the grocery store that you are going to use and just double check the prices as well. You're able to use cash to pay for your groceries, which a lot of people may be like, that's kind of an old-fashioned thing to do, but it really does help with reducing impulse purchases because it limits you to the amounts that you're taking with you. and it helps you to plan your meals that use less items from the store and more around leftovers that you have, more from your pantry. And it also can force you to think outside the box as well. And then one other tip about meal planning is if it's applicable to you and maybe beneficial, make it a family effort as well. So you know that everybody in the family will be interested in eating the meals that you are planning to make. And so I took a little challenge and took a few minutes with a recent local grocery ad, and I came up with as many meals as I could to be able to prepare that would be based just on the items that were in the grocery ad, and then maybe a few basic pantry items as well. And so this is just kind of goes to show that there are a lot of different things that you can come up with to base your meal plan around with the things that are on sale at the grocery store in the week. And so it's something that I would love to invite you guys to do and at least give it a try yourselves and see if it's something that can help you to save money yourselves. So moving on to our next tip. So our second one is to know your core foods. So if there's items that you use a lot or foods that you cook with a lot, keep those in mind and keep an eye out for them in the ads or when they go on sale and stock up on those things. And so don't stock up on items that are a really good deal just because it's a really good deal or it's really inexpensive, but rather know what your core foods are and stick with stocking up on those when they're on sale, because then that will end up a better deal compared to just buying things that are really inexpensive that you're not familiar with using or that your family doesn't like. So an example with this is we use refried beans a lot in my household to make burritos. That's one of our go-to that we don't need to spend a lot of time on meals, or it's like we don't feel like cooking, so it's okay, we'll just pull out the tortillas and beans and cheese and make some burritos. And so when refried beans or tortillas go on sale, we'll buy a few of those and get us stocked up on those as well. And also keep in mind to stock up on items that you can use in multiple different meals as well. And then our next tip, number 3, is to stockpile a little at a time. So if you're wanting to build up your food storage, try to do it a little at a time. So there's 2 different ways that we'll be talking about doing it a little at a time or buying in bulk. So first, consider using just $10 a week out of your grocery budget to buy a couple of things extra, especially when they are on sale, like I mentioned, so that you're able to have them on hand when you need them. You're not having to go run to the store for just one thing, and then you end up coming back with 5 or 6, and you're like, oh, I didn't plan on spending $20. I just went for the one thing. There's a lot of different things that you can stock up on with just $5 or $10 a week. Mostly your staples or spices, your rice, beans, pasta, different things like that as well. And it can help you to build your food storage without really feeling as much of a pinch on your budget. And then our next tip is buying in bulk. And so this can be beneficial in certain situations. And so keep that in mind. These are a few different questions to help you in evaluating if it is a good idea for you to be buying different products in bulk. So how frequently you will consume it, how fast can you consume it? For example, if it's a more perishable item, like we'll say sour cream or milk, you may not really want to buy it in bulk if you aren't going to consume it fast enough. That's something that we've learned the hard way ourselves that we're like, oh yeah, we're doing really good at using sour cream really often, so we'll stock on it because it's on sale, or we'll buy it in bulk, and then we kind of go through a phase where we don't use it as much. Also, do you have enough space to store the product? So this can be especially in particular with your perishable items, but then also being able to properly store non-perishable items so that they don't get damaged or spoiled as well, or even forgotten about because then it expires and then it ends up being more of an expense rather than something you saved money on. And then also the upfront cost as well. So keep that in mind. And then also just don't assume that the big bulk buys are always going to be the best deal. So you may want to even just take a few seconds and look at the price per unit or the price per ounce and compare it to the smaller size and see which one is really the better deal. And so an example of this, my husband and I, we were recently at the grocery store. We use a lot of taco seasoning. And so we saw a big container of it at the grocery store. And he's like, why don't we just get this big container of it instead of buying a whole bunch of the little packets of it? And I was like, that's a good idea. It's not too big of a cost. And we do use it a lot. But then we looked at the price per ounce, and the smaller packets were still a better deal in that instance compared to getting the bigger container of it. And then also, buying in bulk can sometimes lead us to over consuming or just using products more, like I mentioned with the sour cream example, that then we're like, okay, well, we bought this much of it, so now we have to use that much of it, which was maybe more than we would have normally if we hadn't bought in bulk as well. And then just something that I want to mention that is a tool that can be useful with buying things in bulk. So a tool called the revolving savings can be helpful here. And I think that in our presentation last month, for any of you guys that joined us, we talked a little bit about the revolving savings and how that works. But for anybody who was not here with us last week, just really briefly how it works is you'll chart out your irregular or non-monthly expenses and what months they occur. And so, for example, if you are like me and you utilize the case lot sales, we know about when those come up. When you would be stocking up on those different things, or if you live in more of a country area and you stock up on meat, you buy a quarter of a pig or a half a cow or something like that, you'll have a month where your groceries or your food expenses would be significantly higher than normal. And so a revolving savings can help you to be saving up for those times throughout the year in a more manageable way compared to, oh no, like it's fair season and we normally buy a 4-H cow, but how am I going to come up with the money for that all of a sudden? And so then it helps you to break up the amounts that you need for these different expenses into a smaller monthly expense as well. And so any questions about how a revolving savings works? That was just a really brief explanation of that. And then a couple of tips for jumpstarting or funding a revolving savings account is to set up automatic transfers. So figure out what your monthly amount would be and talk to your banking institution or go online and set up an automatic transfer into a specific savings account for it to be automatically done for you. Make it a line item in your monthly budget. Use extra funds from an over calculation in your budget. If you budgeted $200 for utilities this month and it's been a little cooler, and it was only $175 that your utilities were. Then put the $25 towards getting your revolving savings going, or any windfall money, tax refunds for when we're in tax season, or even any bonuses or cashback bonuses could be used to help jumpstart it as well. And utilizing a revolving savings can help you keep from putting excessive amounts on credit as well, that you're not able to keep up with paying off by the end of the month. And then our fifth tip is to buy generic. And so this is just an example to show the savings that can come from buying generic items for the things that you are planning to use in your meals. And so right here we see a simple savings of about $4 just for this one meal. And how much can that equate to over the course of a year? So if you do this for just a few meals and you're able to save about $4 to $5 on each meal that you use it for, it could save you up to $80 a month on your grocery bill. And that would add up to almost $1,000 over the course of a year just by changing to generic on some of the items that you're buying. I'm not saying you have to do it on every single item, but it can be helpful in saving money if you do it on at least some of them. Probably at least half of them will help you to see a pretty noticeable difference. And I do understand that there are some products that you're like, I can't do that generic. For me, it's Oreos. You do taste the difference there, but some of them you don't taste it as much. And just a tip for finding the generic brands that will save you the most money is to look above and below eye level. So stores purposely put the most expensive brands at the average person's eye level, so that you'll see them easier rather than getting the less expensive brands. Our next tip is to raid your pantry and freezer. So take an inventory of your pantry, your fridge, your freezer. I'm not saying you have to do it like super often, but maybe if it's something that you even do on a monthly basis, you just take a little bit of time on a Saturday afternoon or whenever it is for you, and take a little inventory of your pantry and freezer. And the purpose of this is threefold, or the benefits of it is threefold. So you are eating the food that you already have in your home. You are reducing waste, and like what we mentioned, wasting food that's not eaten is wasting money essentially. And most importantly, you're saving money as well. And there are some different apps and websites out there that can help you come up with recipes based on the foods that you do have in your fridge, your freezer, your pantry as well. And so a couple of them are on the slide. So my fridge food app, epicurus.com, and there are some others out there. So if you guys have used any of those, feel free to put them in the chat and share with the others here with us. And then we want to, okay, so this is just an example of what a pantry inventory could look like. There's lots of them that you can find out there on Google or just a simple online search as well. We want to invite you to take the pantry challenge. So this would be where you make meals with just what is in your pantry and freezer or fridge. So make a goal of how long you are going to do this. If you're going to do it for a weekend, or if you'll do it for a whole week, all right, we're not going to go grocery shopping this week. We're going to get creative together and figure out what meals we can make with just what we have here at home already. Or you could even do it for a month, depending on what your freezer and your pantry is looking like. And set a goal of how much you want to save as a result of doing it. If it's, okay, we're going to do it for a week, how much would you normally have spent on groceries that week? And make a plan for what you would use those saved funds for. So you're making it most intentional as well. And so consider putting that towards debt, or really funding a meaningful savings goal as well. So get really creative again. Our next one is use coupons. So it may sound a little old-fashioned talking about coupons, but use digital coupons. Most grocery stores have them these days, or even paper coupons can still be great savings. And it can really pay off if you're utilizing them for things that you were already planning to purchase. And some stores will even send you personalized coupons based on your shopping, which in our family, we find that pretty beneficial because it's like, I was already planning to get that. And thank you so much, store, for sending me coupons for that. Or there's a store around me where I'm at that around the holiday times, they even sent out coupons that were save $10 when you spend $50. And really these days, it's not that hard to spend $50 at the grocery store. So it was really beneficial to take advantage of that. So that was $10 that we were able to put towards stocking up on meats or our vitamins or different things like that. And oftentimes, just a little bit more about digital coupons real quick. They can be pretty quick and easy, just convenient to clip and just take a little quick look over before you insert your card to checkout and just make sure that they all worked properly because there are sometimes some little technical errors with it. And sometimes you are even able to pair digital and paper coupons together for double the savings and then also get cash back on those items, which we'll talk about here in just a second in tip number 10. And also one other thing that I want to say is don't discount or discredit, we'll say, the reduced items that you find. So go check out the meat area where they have the reduced. Sometimes there are some pretty good gems that have been reduced. Sometimes I feel like there's a pretty bad reputation or negative reputation of doing that, but we've been able to find some pretty good quality finds that have been reduced in different areas of the grocery store and even in the produce area as well. Our next tip, don't shop when you are halt. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired. If the answer to any of those questions is yes, that describes you, then take a little break before going to the grocery store. Take some time to kind of relax or get a snack first, because when you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, that is when the most impulse purchases take place. Just briefly, I know we're getting short on time. Our 9th tip is to shop online and pick up your groceries. This can have a few different benefits. It allows you to see the total amount in your cart as you shop, oftentimes less impulse buying from wandering the stores. I'm guilty of that one at some points as well. And then also you can check your pantry or freezer and see if you already have something rather than stocking up double on it and being like, oh man, I actually did have that at home. And then our last tip is to utilize ways to get cash back on groceries. And so there are lots of different, or at least a couple of main different legitimate ways to get cash back on your groceries that can be great ways to combat inflation. And so first is using a credit card that offers anywhere between 3 and 6%. I've seen that there are some out there, cash back on groceries, and that can really add up over the course of a month or especially over the course of the year as well. And that can really help combat inflation, especially if you are able to pay it off at the end of the month and not carry a balance. That is the key right there, or else it will outweigh the benefits of having the cash back by having to pay the interest charges. And then there are apps out there such as Coupon Cabin, Ibotta, Fetch Rewards, or Shopkick or Checkout 51 that either offer coupons or cashback rewards for shopping at your favorite stores as well. And they are legitimate ones. They either give you gift cards or they can directly deposit to your bank account, or give you credit in your PayPal as well. So just one other resource that I want to share or remind you guys of if you were with us last time is the Cutting Expenses booklet tool. So there is a section in here that is all about grocery savings. So there's even more tips in there that we weren't able to talk about today. And so you can go either onto our team's website or utahmoneymoms.com and go under the resources tab to download that as well. And then a few other additional resources. There are lots of different YouTube channels out there, as well as social media channels that have lots of other great resources and tips as well to help out in inflation proofing your budget. One that I want to highlight is Create Better Health. That's a USU extension resource as well. And then a few of these social media ones are groups where people share their cheap or inexpensive meal ideas that they have as well. And so just in summary of what we've talked about today, stores and the media are very tactful in trying to get you to make panic purchases or impulse purchases as well. But there are lots of different simple things that you can do to combat rising grocery prices. Because if you're like me, pretty much every other time there's something that I go to the grocery store for and I'm like, oh, that's more than I paid last time. But there are lots of different simple things that we talked about, and then others that we didn't have time to talk about today to help combat the rising prices. And then also there are ways that you can take advantage of cash back opportunities on groceries through credit card, wise usage, and also different cashback apps as well. And so I want to leave you with a couple of next steps to apply the things that we talked about today. So I want to invite you to pick at least one grocery savings tip that we talked about today, one of the 10 to implement this coming month. And pick one way to get cash back on your groceries, whether that's utilizing your credit card with a cashback opportunity or an app as well. There are different ones out there, so look into them. We mentioned a few and give them a try. And so just really briefly about a couple of resources that our team has available. One is on powerpay.org. It is our PowerPay Money Master online course, and it is a completely self-paced online course that is a deeper dive into all things personal finances. And so there's 10 different modules with different things that you can read, videos to watch, and worksheets to fill out to really help you understand and internalize the things that you are learning in it. And right now it is completely free if you click apply for a fee waiver. Our team has some money in our grants for that. And our team's website is finance.usu.edu/EFW. And so you can find out more about our other resources we have and other classes that we are providing or webinars that we are teaching. And I want to thank you for joining us. And if you guys would be so kind to fill out this really short 2 to 3 minutes evaluation survey by scanning this QR code, or there's just a little link that's pretty easy to type in as well. Then we will be sending out prizes as well. We'd love to hear what you learned or what your favorite thing was that we talked about today, either in the survey or if you want to pop it in the chat as well. Or also just how we can improve our classes going forward. And then our other resources, the utahmoneymoms.com, that's where you can find the Cutting Expenses booklet. And then we also have a website all about resources to combat inflation. So it's inflation.usu.edu. And then we are lastly, sorry, we are just a little over, but we are able to host a class for any group that you are a part of as well, completely free. And so you can get in touch with us on our website to be able to do that. There's a host a class tab. And so feel free to stick around. We will stop the recording here in just a second. But if you have any other questions, you're welcome to stick around and either put them in the chat or unmute yourselves and we can address those as well.
Alicia?
So, yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming.
Oh, yeah. Someone requested, could you go back to